A millionaire twist. A millionaire cowboy reveals his dark secret. This lost child is his son. Jack Carter stood at the edge of his sprawling ranch, the Texas sun blazing down, casting long shadows across the land he fought for. He was wealthier than most could dream, the owner of a cattle empire that symbolized the American dream. Yet beneath the rugged exterior and the charm that drew others to him lay a storm of guilt and regret that threatened to engulf him. The one thing he coveted more than his land, his fortune, was the connection he never had with his son, Billy, swallowed by a foster care system he had inadvertently abandoned. With every breath he took, Jack felt the weight of the choices that had led him to this moment. He was a mighty cowboy, revered by many, yet his heart wrestled with an undeniable truth. He had left a child behind, a boy who had grown in his absence. What did success really mean if he had traded love for cattle? The past churned within him, feeding a relentless anxiety that no amount of riches could soothe. Each time he counted his cattle, especially when he watched them graze on the endless plains, he recalled every broken promise to Sarah, the waitress with dreams in her eyes that had faded too soon. He could almost see her sitting across a diner booth that felt like a different lifetime. Did Sarah forgive him? Or, more hauntingly, would his son? And now, word of Billy's recent graduation pierced through his consciousness like a bullet. For months, Jack had been stealthily monitoring the boy's progress, heart racing each time he saw a picture or a mention of the bright young man he had yet to meet. The pull of the unknown was undeniable, as if the very fabric of his existence depended on this connection, and yet fear paralyzed him. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The graduation ceremony came too quickly, and Jack found himself in the rear of the crowded hall, heart pounding in anticipation, while also battling the urge to flee. Billy stood at the podium, confidence radiating, a stark reminder of Jack's failures. Each whispered word from the crowd echoed painfully, fueling the tornado of unresolved emotions in his mind. What would he say? What could he say? The idea of being the father Billy never knew filled him with both desperation and dread simultaneously. As the time to meet loomed closer, Jack's muscles tightened. What if Billy recoiled at the mention of his name? What if he was simply another stranger in a long line of disappointments? His instinct screamed at him to turn away, to obscure his identity behind the curtain of his success. But deep down, Jack knew. He was more than just a cowboy with a lucrative ranch. He was a man longing for redemption, yearning for acceptance, facing the specter of a past he could no longer ignore. With a deep, trembling breath, Jack stepped closer to the crowd, poised at the edge of a decision that could redefine their lives forever. Would he bridge the chasm of their shared history, or find himself utterly alone again? The moment hung thick with electric tension, leaving no easy answers, only the crushing weight of possibilities. As Billy finished his speech, the room erupted into applause, a sound that felt like an avalanche crashing down on Jack. He knew he should be proud, but the joy of seeing his son excel was overshadowed by a suffocating sense of inadequacy. The laughter around him felt as foreign as the distant lands he often traversed. Each clap resonated in his chest, hammering home a singular truth. He had been absent during the most formative years of this remarkable young man. Jack's hands curled into fists, nails digging into his palms. He was standing at the precipice of potentially changing their lives forever, yet dread gripped him like a vice. What if he didn't know how to be a father? What if, after all these years, the gulf between them was too vast to bridge? Billy wouldn't have the memories of holidays spent together, or the simple bonding moments that define father-son relationships. Jack's heart wrenched at the thought. Yet, as people began to rise from their seats, Jack felt his breath catch. This was it. He forced himself forward. Each step was a battle against the screaming voice in his head, questioning his worthiness to reach out to the boy he had abandoned. He felt out of place among the crowd of families rejoicing, their joy a bittersweet reminder of what he could never reclaim. The vivid images of missed birthdays and milestones tormented him with clarity. Just as he reached the front, a well-dressed man wrapped his arms around Billy in an embrace. The boy laughed, a euphoric sound that almost broke Jack in two. He was swept into the celebration of those moments Jack had lost. The emotions surged within him, hot and painful, like whiskey on an empty stomach. Suddenly, Billy turned and saw Jack, their eyes locking for the first time. In that fleeting moment, time halted. Jack's breath caught as he battled the surging tide of emotions. Fear wrapped around him, but his yearning for connection eclipsed it. Billy's expression shifted from joy to confusion, the applause around them fading into the distance. Jack forced a smile, desperately trying to mask his own turmoil.
"Billy," he managed, voice steady despite the tempest inside. The expectation that Billy should know him, should accept him, was a weight he could barely shoulder, and yet here they stood. "Do I know you?" Billy asked, the line between shock and guardedness clear in his tone. Jack felt his heart plummet into the abyss of his own choices. "This is—" he stumbled over the words. "I'm your father. I've been following you. I'm so proud of everything you've accomplished." The truth hung heavy in the air, and the room fell silent. Billy's eyes widened, disbelief etched across his youthful face. Jack desperately searched his son's expression, trying to decipher the mixture of confusion, determination, and the shadow of rejection that was creeping in. "Right," Billy replied, voice cold and laced with skepticism. "You thought following me from a distance was enough?" Jack felt the gut punch of that accusation. It was in that moment he knew he had only just begun the hard work of proving his worth, not just as a father, but as a man ready to face his past. "I know I've made mistakes," Jack said, swallowing down the bitterness of truth. "But I want to make it right. I want to be here now, for you." He could see the weight of generations in Billy's eyes as the tension thickened around them, melding hope and disbelief into an intricate dance of emotions. Nothing would be easy. Every word would be carved from the raw stone of their shared history that needed to be unearthed, one painful conversation at a time. Something had shifted between them, a crack in the distance carved by Jack's honesty. Yet, as excitement danced in the air, the confrontation of the past still lay ahead. Billy took a step back, uncertainty creasing his brow. "You think it's that simple? This isn't a business arrangement, you know." Jack realized the truth. This moment was not the resolution, but merely an opening. The time had come to face the person he had failed to be, and the journey toward acceptance was just beginning. Billy turned on his heels, leaving Jack standing alone, swamped by realization. The mother in Jack's life resurfaced. He needed to confront her, too. But every revelation held the potential for further bitterness, and the urgency struck him like the flicker of sunlight over a darkened horizon. What had he unleashed, and would his honesty cost him everything he yearned for? The air was thick with tension, and Jack stood frozen as the last remnants of the applause dissipated. Despite the warmth of the crowd, he felt icy dread settling in the pit of his stomach. He had made himself vulnerable, bare, exposed. Now he was left to confront the very reality he had avoided for so long. The resolve that he felt just moments before had transformed into a cold wash of panic. What if he had pushed too far? What if there was no way back now? The buzz of laughter and chatter faded as he stood there, engulfed by his own spiraling thoughts. He replayed the exchange with Billy in his mind, searching for any glimmer of hope that he might have sparked something in his son, a flicker of recognition perhaps. But all he found was Billy's reticent stance, a boy caught between the expectations of his unknown father and the life he had shaped without Jack's presence. Jack exhaled, forcing himself to remember that this was only the beginning. There was a path forward to be formed, though it was marked with jagged stones of old grievances. Alone in the crowd, he felt supposed relationships flitting away in the blushing light of day. And as he took one step to reclaim them, everything seemed to pull him back into isolation. He turned, seeking the familiar face of an old friend in the growing throng, but the sea of joyful reunion only amplified his solitude. The disappointment settled within him, rooting itself in a soil already rich with regret. It seemed impossible to break down the barriers he had for so long allowed to grow. Desperation struck him as he recalled his mother's scolding voice from years past. "You can't change the past, Jack. You can only face the future." It was time to change the narrative he had been telling himself. Instead of hiding, he had to step into the challenge. He pulled out his phone and hesitated, the weight of his next choice almost too heavy to bear. Would reaching out to Billy's mother be the wrong move? Faced with the uncertainty of her reaction, Jack weighed the possible fallout against the hope that she might share insight into Billy's world, into how to approach him again. Would it lead to building the bridge he so desperately needed? With a deep breath, he tapped on her number. The ringing in his ear thrummed with anticipation. Would she slap him with anger or welcome him with an open heart? He had nothing but sincerity left to offer, an offer of conversation, of reconciliation. He just needed the courage to speak. "Hello?" came her voice, calm yet edged with scrutiny. "Claire," Jack started, swallowing hard. "It's Jack." Silence stretched between them, a gaping chasm filled with the memories of their past. It was as if the world around him had faded entirely, leaving just the two of them in a time capsule suspended in emotional freeze-frame. "Why are you calling?" she finally replied, voice steady and low. Jack ran his fingers through his hair, trying to gather his thoughts. "I need to talk about Billy, about us, about everything." "Everything?" she echoed, skepticism sharpening her tone. "You think that's enough after—" "I know it isn't," he interrupted, voice rising as emotion peaked within. "What I did was unforgivable, but I want to understand our son, and I'm willing to hear you out. I'm reaching out, Claire. I want to be better." There was a long pause, and Jack could almost feel the weight of her contemplation on the other end of the line. He held his breath, bracing for the answers that could either shatter or shape his future. "All right," she finally said. "We can talk, but understand this, Jack. It will not be easy." Jack's heart raced. He could feel the tremors of opportunity crackling against his skin. This discussion was not just a conduit toward understanding Billy. It was the first step toward his own redemption. "I know," he replied, newfound determination coloring his tone. "But it's a step I have to take." As they exchanged details for the meeting, Jack hung up feeling a rush of something akin to hope. Poignant and fragile, yet a current pulsing through him nonetheless. But even as he basked in this newfound resolve, Jack couldn't shake the new layer of unease creeping in. What if this talk with Claire opened scars better left alone? As he walked through the growing dusk, shadows lengthening, the burden of uncertainty lingered. He was on the brink of a conversation that might unravel everything he thought he knew, perhaps transforming his life even further. The moment of truth approached rapidly, leaving Jack to question what truths he might face, and whether he could bear the weight of accountability for a future he had long neglected. Would he emerge renewed, or would he come face to face with the vestiges of his past? One thing was for sure, there was no turning back now. The sun hung low in the sky as Jack made his way to the agreed-upon cafe, a quaint little spot that felt like a vibrant remnant of a past he desperately wanted to reclaim. Each step felt heavier than the last, partly because of the weight of what he was about to do, and partly because of the uncertainty swaddling him like a thick fog. He had spent countless hours pondering his mistakes, yet nothing had prepared him for the impending confrontation. A reality check loomed, and he could almost hear his own heart ticking like a timer, each beat counting down toward the moment where he would have to face Claire, his past, and the reality of being a father. Arriving at the cafe, he took a moment to collect himself as he pushed through the door. The scent of freshly ground coffee and baked pastries wrapped around him, momentarily distracting him from his impending doom. He glanced around, his nerves dancing in a frantic tango, before spotting Claire seated in a cozy corner booth. Her posture was rigid, arms crossed over her chest, creating a wall that felt insurmountable even from across the room. She looked more like a judge than the mother of a boy he barely knew, and this brought a fresh wave of trepidation. With a deep breath, he approached her table. As he drew near, he couldn't help but notice the familiar lines of wariness etched on her face, lines that told a story of struggle and disappointment. The years had
not been kind to either of them, and he could almost feel the animosity swarming around her like a storm cloud as he took a seat opposite her. "Jack," Claire greeted him, her voice cool and collected. "Thanks for meeting me," he stumbled, searching for the right words as she regarded him with sharp eyes. "Let's get one thing clear," she cut in, voice unwavering. "I didn't agree to this meeting for pleasantries. Billy's my priority." Her words cut through him, but they held a certain truth he could not deny. He realized as she glared at him that he was still a foreigner in the life he had neglected for so long. "I know I haven't been there," he admitted, steadying his voice to show her he meant it. "But I want to change that. I need to understand who Billy is, and more importantly, how to be a father he deserves." Claire's expression softened ever so slightly, giving way to vulnerability buried beneath layers of hurt. "You think it's as easy as saying you want something?" she replied, her voice tinged with disbelief. "You don't know what you're asking." Jack took her words to heart. They felt like a punch, but he was determined to fight through the pain. "I do understand it's not easy. I carry that weight every day, Claire. I haven't forgotten what I lost, the family I chose to walk away from." For the first time, he saw her eyes flicker with something other than disdain. Perhaps it was recognition, or the briefest hint of hope. "So what's different this time, Jack?" she challenged. "I'm willing to step into my mistakes," he responded, the determination flooding his voice. "But I need your help to navigate this. I can't do it alone, and I don't want to make things worse for you or Billy." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the echoes of their shared history. Jack could feel her wall crack under the weight of honesty, and she finally let out a long sigh. "You don't realize how complicated this is. Billy sees you in his dreams, and then he wakes up to the reality you're not there. I can't let you just waltz in and expect him to accept you." "I won't," Jack quickly interjected, a surge of passion igniting within him. "I'll earn his trust. I want to rebuild, brick by brick." Claire's gaze narrowed as she considered his words.
Clearly, her skepticism was still firmly rooted, but Jack could tell a seed of doubt had been planted. Even the tiniest change in her demeanor offered a flicker of hope. "It won't happen overnight, Jack. Parenting isn't a part-time job." "Neither was being a father to Billy," Jack reframed, his conviction growing stronger. "I'm ready for the full-time commitment now, as long as you'll stand with me." The air between them shifted, becoming electric with tension, as Jack grappled with what lay ahead. Just as Claire opened her mouth to respond, the cafe door swung wide, and a figure he recognized all too well walked in. His son, Billy, looking a mix of apprehensive and curious. Jack's heart sank and soared in the same breath. This was the moment of truth, a split second where he could slip into something more comfortable or grasp the opportunity laid before him. Would he step up and embrace the future, or would years of absence render him powerless? As Billy's gaze fell on both parents, Jack felt the full weight of his decision settle like fog on his shoulders. Would he sink under the pressure, or finally rise to the occasion as a father? The answer lay in the unfolding seconds, and the urgency remained palpable. It was time to step into the unknown. Jack's heart raced as Billy entered the cafe, and in that instant he felt the gravity of fatherhood pressing down on him. The familiar figure of his son, small and uncertain, clashed sharply with the irresponsible past he could no longer ignore. Time unraveled in fragments, Billy's gaze drifting from Claire to him, questioning and searching, as if hoping to find an answer that had eluded them both for years. "Hey, buddy," Jack managed, his voice sounding foreign even to his own ears. The word felt strangely comforting, yet undeniably fraught with implications. The intent was there, buried beneath layers of regret. He just needed Billy to see the man he wanted to be, not the one who had abandoned him. Billy hesitated, his small brow furrowed in confusion. Jack's breath caught in his throat. This was the difficult threshold, the delicate line between wanting forgiveness and having to earn it. Jack instinctively drew his body forward, hanging on to the edge of the table as if it could shield him from the past that loomed larger than life. "Why are you here?" Billy finally spoke, his voice a mixture of curiosity and wariness. The innocent question struck Jack like a lashing ray of sunlight, piercing through the murk of self-doubt, illuminating the road ahead. "I came to see you," he responded, wishing the words could weave the fabric of a bond they had never nurtured. "I want to know you, who you are, what you like. I want to be a part of your life." "Like you were before?" Billy countered bluntly, a challenging edge to his otherwise soft voice. Jack felt his face flush with embarrassment, a hot reminder of the pain he had inflicted. "No, not like before. I want to be better this time," he replied, each word a bold declaration. "I was wrong, and I don't expect you to just forgive me. I need to start from scratch if you let me." Claire's eyes narrowed as she observed the exchange between father and son, protective instincts flaring at the mere thought of Billy being hurt again. Her presence loomed over them like a formidable shadow, but Jack fought to push past it. "Billy," he said, addressing him directly, determination shaping his tone, "I want to show you that I can change." A flicker of recognition passed over Billy's features, though uncertainty still loomed like a cloud over his small shoulders. "Why did you leave?" he asked, his voice dropping to a whisper that drowned out the ambient noise of the cafe.
Jack braced himself for the intensity of the question, aware that the answer could either forge a path forward or obliterate any slight trust they'd begun to build. "I let fear and selfishness guide me," Jack admitted, a knot of conviction forming in his stomach. "I convinced myself that leaving was the right choice, but it was wrong. I missed everything about being your dad." Billy's face softened for just a moment, a flicker of the innocence that could still be salvaged. "But how do I know you won't just go away again?" he inquired, eyes wide with the bluntness of a child's fear. Silence enveloped them as Jack wrestled with the reality of trusts shattered and dreams swept away. "You have every right to question me. I promise to work harder than ever to be here this time." Those words hung in the air, offering a glimmer of what could be, if he could convince Claire too. Claire shifted slightly, her body language tightening again. The session wasn't just about reconciliation, it was a negotiation of emotions, boundaries, and reality. "You have to understand, Jack, this isn't just about you and Billy, it's about what's best for him," Claire interjected, solidifying her stance as an unwavering guardian. "I know," Jack replied urgently, the weight of his voice pressing against the tentative alliances formed in that moment. "And I want to work with you, not against you. Billy deserves a father who wants to be there, and you deserve peace." Her gaze remained skeptical, yet Jack could see she was wrestling with the very concept he was fighting for, the ambition to rebuild, brick by brick, despite the past threatening to collapse everything around him. "Are you serious about this?" she asked quietly, voice laced with an undercurrent of hope buried deep beneath the skepticism. "I am," Jack affirmed, sensing the shift in the room, the currents of possibility swirling around them. He would embrace accountability, refreshing his identity not only in the eyes of his son, but also in the context of the family he had long neglected. A tense breath hovered in the space between them, and just as Jack opened his mouth to speak again, the bakery's loud timer chimed, breaking the moment. The sound startled them, jolting him back to reality. The world outside rumbled on carelessly, but here he felt the course of his life shifting with furious intensity. "Jack," Claire leaned in, sincerity replacing some of her previous wariness. "This journey won't be easy, but it has to start with more than just words. Are you certain you're willing to fight for your place in Billy's life?" Before he could answer, Billy spoke up, hesitantly.
"If you really want to stay, you have to face some of the stuff that happened. I want to know." Jack's heart raced, realizing what that meant. The confrontation with not only his past, but the uncomfortable truth that being a father would entail difficult, perhaps painful discussions. The reckoning was only beginning, and he could feel his resolve cementing itself deeper, ready to transcend the burden of the past. He nodded, steeling himself for the commitment ahead. "I'm ready for that, Billy, whatever it takes." With that, the fragile thread of hope that had begun weaving its way through their small table, laden with pastries and untouched coffee, hung on a precarious line. Would they be able to navigate the complexities of their shared past and build a future together? Jack could feel them standing at the edge of a precipice, the potential for transformation shimmering just beyond. As Claire observed him, a hesitant truce blossomed, leaving Jack teetering between anxiety and determination. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice urged him forward. He'd made his choice. He would confront the truths that had haunted him and begin to build the bridge to his son's heart. The difficult road ahead taunted him, and he braced himself for the profound challenge of truly becoming a father. The cafe door swung shut again, drawing his focus back, but now he had to face more than just his own beliefs. Would Claire join him in this fragile new beginning?
Jack's pulse quickened, the impending moment heavy with significance. Would they find common ground to collaborate on the challenge of introducing a father back into a son's life? Or would they find themselves conflicted, torn by the shadows of the past? The answers would unfold in the days ahead, silently waiting to reveal themselves. Jack shifted uncomfortably in his chair, the weight of the moment pressing on him, as the stillness of the cafe seemed to swell around him. Each tick of the clock reminded him that this was a pivotal moment. His past and future collided in a spectacular show of hurt and hope. The fear in Billy's eyes echoed in Jack's heart, pushing him deeper into a resolve he never knew he had. "Let's talk about what happened," Jack said, his voice firm but quivering from the weight of his admission. The silence from Billy was palpable, a mix of eager anticipation wrapped in fear. The question lingered. What was he even prepared to uncover? "You promised to tell me why you left," Billy urged, his voice steady, but Jack saw the slight tremor in his son's small hands resting on the table, betraying the internal battle of a child caught between longing and caution. Jack took a deep breath, his throat dry. "I didn't want to leave you, buddy. That wasn't my choice. But I was scared of being a failure, and I thought it would be easier to walk away than to confront the truth." As he spoke, memories surged, faded images of late-night arguments, nights spent alone drowning in stubborn pride. He recalled his dreams, ephemeral and unreachable, overshadowed by the very fears that had dictated his life choices. Jack's eyes fell to the table, fighting the urge to retreat into those familiar shadows. "Why didn't you tell me?" Billy pressed, his voice edged with frustration. Jack met his gaze, feeling the piercing scrutiny of his son. That tangible question echoed, questioning the intact walls of his derived identity. "Because I was ashamed," Jack confessed, swallowing the bitterness that lingered like acid on his tongue. "I thought running away would be the right thing, saving you from a father who couldn't handle his responsibilities. But I learned the hard way that it only breaks hearts." "I hate that you left," Billy whispered, the pain in his tone unmistakable. Jack winced as he faced the stark reality. The mere admission of feeling discomfort didn't transform the years of absence into a remote possibility of acceptance. Regret settled heavily on both father and son. But Jack recognized this was necessary, a distressing initiation that could carve a newfound direction from regret. "I can't change what I did," Jack said, forcing himself to keep eye contact despite the intensity of Billy's stare. "But my intention is to show you I can be different now. I didn't know I could feel this much until I stood in front of you today." Billy's expression shifted, uncertainty mingling with budding interest. "What if you go away again?" A parental instinct surged within Jack, igniting his determination even further. "I won't let that happen. Every day I'm going to prove that I'm in this for the long haul. You, not my fear, will define my actions. I'll keep fighting, no matter how challenging it gets." Satisfied but still uncertain, Billy took a moment, chewing over the idea like a tough piece of meat. Jack sensed that this was only the beginning. Each question posed by Billy would only crack open the door wider to deeper vulnerabilities. The prospect of opening this valve of painful history was daunting, yet he felt an unusual surge of strength alongside the dread. Claire leaned in slightly, as if to absorb the tentativeness that filled the room. She seemed to study Jack, her protective instincts both a barrier and a bridge. "This is a fragile moment, Jack," she warned gently. "Work needs to be done, and trust has to be earned." "I understand, and I welcome it," Jack said firmly, locking eyes with Claire. "I'm committed to rebuilding from the ground up, brick by brick. I know this will take time, but Billy deserves all of me, no, more than what I failed to provide before."
She nodded very slightly, a gesture that felt monumental in the circumstances. Jack took that nod as a lifeline, a sliver of unity emerging in the deep cracks of their history. The cafe buzzed with the mundane activities of life, yet within Jack a raging storm brewed. He was resolute, willing to confront every second of pain to mend the frayed threads of their family. But as they sat in the delicate balance of fragile conversation, Jack wondered if his actions would speak louder than his promises. Would Billy, once light-hearted and carefree, see past his father's spectral history? More pressing, what depths of honesty would he have to wade through to affirm that he was not just a visitor in Billy's life, but a foundational presence? "Every day is a new chance," Billy finally said, a slight smile breaking through the tension. It felt like a lifeline, a beacon of fragile hope stretched between them. Jack smiled back, the warmth swelling in his chest. Here lay an uncharted territory, an opportunity for growth awaiting every challenging conversation. Yet the shadows loomed larger when he considered the potential for failure still lurking just outside his grasp. With a deep breath, he spoke. "Let's commit to this journey together. It's time we face everything and own the truth, no matter how painful it might be." As they exchanged glances, a shared resolve soaked into the air surrounding them. Jack's heart beat steadily, feeling the pressure of the road ahead. They would rebuild, even if it meant traversing unexplained depths of sorrow alongside moments of joy. Yet the uncertainty hung like a cloud. What unexpected revelations awaited them? Would his new resolve be tested more than he believed? Just as Jack settled into the thought of moving forward, his phone buzzed, a text from his past flickering across the screen. His heart raced, the fresh optimism brewed in waves of trepidation as he read the message. Would that past intervened at the most critical moment, or would it serve as a cumbersome weight on the journey ahead? Jack stared at the message on his phone, the words seeping into him like ice water. Brian. A name he hadn't uttered in years, but one that still held significant weight in his mind. His former business partner, who once shared in his ambitious aspirations and devastating failures. The text, a simple inquiry about lunch, felt like a beckoning from the dark corners of his past. Just as panic threatened to swallow him, he looked up at Billy, whose innocent excitement twinkled in his eyes, oblivious to the emotional storm unfolding in Jack's mind. "Dad, are you okay?" Billy's small voice cut through the haze, grounding Jack momentarily. "Yeah, buddy, just a message from someone I used to know," Jack replied, forcing a smile, though his chest tightened with the unspoken weight of uncertainty. He wondered, would engaging with his past truly assist in building a future with his son, or would it only complicate things further? "Are you going to answer it?" Billy asked, a fidget of nervousness creeping into his posture. Jack realized that his son was seeking stability, a foundation on which they could build their new relationship. He couldn't allow his unresolved affiliations to destabilize this fragile moment. Jack glanced at the message again. He could easily disregard it and focus solely on the path forward with Billy. Yet he had spent a lifetime running from his choices, from the opportunities he failed to grasp. Perhaps this was a chance to face his past head-on, to reclaim some semblance of control. "I think I should," Jack finally replied, surprising himself with the decision. "Just to clarify things, about my career before all this." His words trailed off. Billy needed more than just reassurances. He needed the whole, sometimes messy truth. Claire observed him intently, the fatigue from their earlier conversation beginning to show. "But Jack, every time you revisit that chapter, you risk losing focus on why we're here. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about Billy, too." Her words struck a chord. Jack felt the weight of his responsibilities cascading over him. How could he articulate the lessons he learned without dragging Billy into the quagmire of his failures? Yet he also understood that facing his demons was part of preparation for guiding his son properly. "Trust me, Claire, I'm going to be careful," he assured her. Yet the reassurance did little to ease his own anxiety. He knew this could either serve as a stepping stone or a pitfall. What he never anticipated was that the answer lay in facing his own limitations. As they departed the cafe, Jack's mind spun wildly, dissecting the consequences of any decision he made next. He silently reflected on the methods he had employed to distance himself from failure, tactics that had now grown dull against the vibrant need for honesty in the present. At home, the tension hung thick in the air, and Jack glanced at Billy, curled up on the couch playing a video game. "What if everything we've talked about depends on more than just us?" he posed, uncertain if Billy could grasp the scope of what he was hinting at. Billy paused, frowning as his finger hovered over the controller. Finally, he looked straight at Jack. "Then we need to do it together, or else you'll just be doing it alone again." Jack grudgingly admired how instinctively Billy navigated through complex emotions, the innocence of a child juxtaposed with a wisdom born from pain. "What do you think I should do?" Jack ventured, testing the water of an authentic connection. "Be honest, even if it's hard. Tell them everything. I don't want you hiding anymore," Billy responded earnestly. Jack felt the weight of his son's expectation pressing on his shoulders. It stirred something buried deep within, igniting a desire not only to change, but also to openly embrace vulnerability. That evening, Jack sat at the kitchen table, the screen glowing as he hovered over the message from Brian. Each second stretched as he weighed the possibilities. He took a breath and opened the conversation, typing carefully, aware that this moment could redefine the next chapter of their lives, both his own and Billy's. Just as he hit send, a new determination surged through him. He may have once been a man consumed by fear, fear of failure, fear of confrontation, but now he was a father willing to confront the daunting task of redemption. Yet as he sat there, a stray thought threaded through his mind. Perhaps confronting Brian would reveal unknown aspects of himself he hadn't dared explore in years. Would he be stepping into a realm of possibility or crashing into another wave of disillusionment? The phone buzzed again, and as he read the response, Jack felt the delicate balance of hope and anxiety sway again. What would the fallout from connecting with his past yield, and would it bring him closer to the goal he tirelessly craved? Only time would tell. The next morning, Jack awoke to the remnants of his decision weighing heavily on his mind. The sunlight streamed through the partially drawn curtains, brushing against the edges of uncertainty that had settled in the corners of his thoughts. His phone lay next to him, buzzing intermittently as though taunting him with the gravity of the conversation he'd initiated. With a mixture of dread and anticipation, he grabbed the phone, his heart racing as he navigated to the chat with Brian. The response awaited him. "Let's meet today at noon, place of your choice." A simple invitation, yet fraught with implications that loomed large over his aspirations for the future. He rolled out of bed, determined to establish a sense of normalcy before facing the day's challenge. As Jack moved through his morning routine, he reflected on Billy's words from the previous night. Honesty. That single word resonated with him, echoing through his mind like a mantra. It wasn't just about addressing the past, but confronting its effect on his present and future. After preparing breakfast, he sat at the table watching Billy intently as the boy skillfully navigated the complexities of his game, his fingers dancing across buttons in precise synchronization. There was an ease about him that Jack envied, a certainty that he still felt was unattainable. Billy glanced up, his expression shifting as he sensed his father's tension. "Are you nervous about meeting him?" Jack hesitated, searching for the right words. "It's not just that, buddy. It's more about facing everything I left behind. I just hope I can make you proud." "You will. Just be real. You can't mess that up,"
Billy assured him, his voice imbued with the wisdom that often comes unexpectedly from the innocent. As they ate, Jack felt a strange sense of clarity wash over him. It occurred to him that this lunch could serve as more than a confrontation with his past. It was a chance to rewrite it, to redefine what it meant to be a father, not just in a biological sense, but as a guiding force in Billy's life. Billy finished his meal and gave a final poke at the remaining cereal. "Can we go to the park after? I want to show you."
A new trick I learned. Of course, let's make it a celebration, no matter what happens. His heart swelled with resolve, a new determination anchoring him as the clock inched closer to noon. When the time finally arrived, Jack chose a cafe halfway between their homes, neutral ground in an uncertain terrain. He arrived early, pacing in the cool shade, allowing himself to engage in the nervous energy that thrummed within him, instead of shoving it down. As the minutes passed, anticipation tinged his thoughts, a swirl of anxiety mingling with the hope that this meeting could pave the way for honest communication. Would Brian have changed? Would he really hear Jack out? The questions he posed to himself felt heavy, like weights pulling at his resolve. Then he spotted Brian from a distance, a wiry figure walking toward him with an air of familiarity masking a protective distance. Years had etched lines on his face that hinted at his own battles, and as they approached each other, Jack could see the remnants of their shared past reflecting in Brian's eyes. There they stood, two men bound by ambition, failure, and, inexplicably, the possibility of redemption. Jack's heart raced as he readied himself to breach the gap of silence that had long defined their relationship. "Hey, Brian," Jack began, the words already trembling on the corners of his mouth. "Thanks for coming." As Brian sized him up, Jack braced himself. Drawing on the lessons from his past, he felt the iron resolve of truth flow through him. This was more than a reunion, it was a reckoning. However, just as Jack prepared to dive into the depths of their shared experiences, Brian's expression shifted ominously. "There's something I need to tell you." The weight of those words hung in the air, palpable and electric, pulling Jack deeper into an unforeseen vortex. The reckoning was about to unfold, yet he couldn't shake the sense that this was about to tip in a direction he couldn't predict. What had Brian to reveal, and how would it impact the fragile path Jack had been striving to forge with Billy? Jack's heart thudded in his chest as he processed Brian's statement. The atmosphere around them thickened, an invisible barrier closing in as he awaited the inevitable. Brian's face was a mask of conflicted emotions, regret, frustration, and perhaps a shadow of nostalgia. "What is it, Brian?" Jack managed to ask, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of apprehension swirling inside him. Brian exhaled, a slow release that suggested he had been holding on to more than just words. "Things aren't what they seem," he began, his tone grave. "When you left, there were consequences that unfolded, things I didn't want to face. But I have to be honest with you." Tension knotted in Jack's stomach. The weight of Brian's admission ignited doubts in the recesses of his mind. What had really happened during his absence? "Don't leave me hanging," Jack urged, a hint of urgency breaking through his calm facade. Brian met his gaze, a sense of gravity anchoring him. "You had a son, Jack, a son who's growing up with all the burdens of your choices." The revelation struck like a bolt of lightning, shattering the fragile groundwork of Jack's resolve. "What did you say?" The words spilled out, disbelieving and heavy. It felt surreal, a nightmare he couldn't wake from. Brian's brow furrowed. "I didn't know how to tell you. We both thought it was better left unsaid, but he deserves to know you, Jack. He's 13 now, and the scars of your absence, of our decisions, have taken their toll." Every syllable drew Jack deeper into an emotional chasm. "How could you keep this from me?" The accusation slipped out before he had a chance to compose himself. "I was trying to protect you," Brian shot back with exasperation. "We both had our demons. I thought ignorance was safer. Now I see it wasn't." Jack felt a mix of anger and horrified understanding gnawing at his insides. Here he stood, intent on rebuilding his life, only to discover that his past held an even more convoluted path than he had anticipated. "Protect me, or protect yourself?" he pushed back, feeling the walls he had built around his identity begin to crack. "Both, maybe," Brian shot back, frustration boiling over. "You can't pretend it doesn't matter. I know this isn't easy, but the boy needs his father, and maybe you need him too." A part of Jack desperately wanted to deny the gravity of what Brian had shared. How could he embrace such a colossal shift in the narrative of his life? Yet another part, a burgeoning part rooted in his desire to be a better man for Billy, recognized the urgency. "What's his name?" he asked quietly, fear and hope fighting for dominance within him. "His name is Charlie," Brian replied, and the name rang in Jack's ears like a bell tolling for a lost time. A child of his own, a piece of him living somewhere, grappling with realities Jack had actively chosen to ignore. Jack turned away, the cafe buzzing with life around him, a stark contrast to the turmoil within. He felt like a stranger to himself, grappling with the enormity of a decision he hadn't made yet, but was already throbbing in his veins. Could he confront this new reality? Could he face Charlie and perhaps find a way to heal the wounds he didn't even know existed? His thoughts sharpened into focus, igniting the flame of an unfamiliar determination. This wasn't merely about Jack facing his own past, but becoming the father he aspired to be. A father who would guide, protect, and embrace his child when the time came. "I need to meet him," Jack declared, newfound conviction washing over him. "I need to make it right." Brian nodded, with a glimmer of approval mixed with concern in his eyes. "It won't be easy, but you can't back down this time. The past is what it is, but your future, Charlie's future, can still take a different path." As they settled on a plan to find Charlie, Jack felt the pieces of himself shift, realigning into something solid. The fear was still there, but it was now juxtaposed with the thrill of potential redemption. Could he truly face this new challenge head-on? Would he manage to bridge the gap he had created in his son's life? Stitch together the fragmented legacy of a father he had failed to be? The cafe hummed around them, oblivious to the profound transformation unfolding at their table. Jack realized that life was not merely a series of moments lost in time. It was his opportunity to shape something meaningful, despite the adversity, both self-imposed and circumstantial, he had to confront. Just as he began to feel empowered, a single thought struck him with chilling clarity. What if Charlie didn't want to see him? What if the boy resented him for a life lived without a father's presence? "Brian," he said suddenly, the concern creeping back into his voice, "what if he hates me?" A silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating, as uncertainties loomed larger than the breakthrough Jack had sought. The next chapter of his life was about to unfold, riddled with challenges and a desperate need for acceptance that could shatter everything he had hoped to build. Jack stood at the edge of his new reality, the energy surging within him, both thrilling and daunting. The revelations of the past had laid bare the immense shadows he danced within for years. Charlie, another son lost within the folds of his abandoned decisions. Yet amidst the morass of regret, something flickered: hope. As he prepared to meet Charlie, determination consumed every fiber of Jack's being. This was his chance, not only to reclaim lost time, but to confront the consequences of his past with renewed strength. He would be the father Charlie deserved, one who would show up for him, not with grand gestures, but through unwavering presence. In the days leading to their meeting, Jack immersed himself in preparation. He revisited old memories, reflecting not only on his failures, but what it truly meant to be a father. He acknowledged the fears that had paralyzed him, recognizing that fear could no longer dictate his narrative. Each moment of doubt he encountered became fuel for his resolve, compelling him to confront not only Charlie, but the man he had become. The day arrived, and as Jack drove towards the cafe, dread and excitement tangled together. He envisioned Charlie, full of potential, yet a stranger. Would he embrace Jack? Reject him? The numerous possibilities conjured images of hope and fear, ancient and fresh, battling for supremacy. When he arrived, Jack's heart hammered in his chest. The cafe, once a place of friendly chatter, felt like hollowed ground. Every corner prepared to witness the lines of fate intertwining. A son meeting the father who had unknowingly inspired a gaping absence in his life. Jack arrived 5 minutes early, pacing just outside the door. He took deep, steadying breaths, fighting the rising tide of anxiety. On the patio, he could see teenagers milling about, portions of what felt like family units gathering together. Some at full tables, others in smaller clusters. Jack brushed a hand through his hair, mental pep talks flowing through his thoughts like swift river rapids. Then he spotted Charlie. A nervous teenager with dark hair and a familiar silhouette sat alone at a table. Jack's heart sank when he caught sight of the slight tremble in the boy's hands as he focused on his phone. A powerful wave of recognition coursed through him, a connection that transcended mere biology. As he walked toward Charlie, emotions roiled within him like a storm. "Hey, Charlie," he greeted, voice strong despite the white-knuckled anxiety anchoring him in place. Charlie looked up, confusion etched on his features. For a moment he seemed to contemplate whether to rise or shrink back. "Who are you? What do you want?" Jack felt his pulse quicken under the weight of uncertainty. This was the vulnerable moment he had anticipated, yet it felt surreal, as if the ground under his feet had shifted. "I'm your father," he said, letting the word linger in the air. "I'm here to meet you." The strangeness between them morphed into tension, an intricate dance of hope and skepticism. Jack noted Charlie's expression, those wide eyes filled with curiosity, tempered by confusion. "Why now?" Charlie asked, arms crossing in a defensive posture. "You couldn't have bothered before?" "I get it," Jack replied, voice steady but deep with sincerity. "I did wrong, Charlie. I've been trying to reconcile what I lost, and I want you to know I'm here to understand you. I want to be present, wherever that leads." "A lot of words," Charlie responded, suspicion lacing his tone. "But why should I believe you? What makes today different?" Jack felt despair seep into the cracks of his confidence. This was the moment to prove he was deserving of this chance. "Because I'm ready to face the consequences of my choices, to live outside the shadows of my past. I want that for you, too. I want to be better, if you'll let me." "A lot of words," Charlie responded, suspicion lacing his tone. "But why should I believe you? What makes today different?" Jack felt despair seep into the cracks of his confidence. This was the moment to prove he was deserving of this chance. "Because I'm ready to face the consequences of my choices, to live outside the shadows of my past. I want that for you, too. I want to be better, if you'll let me." The silence that followed stretched painfully, heavy with the weight of what could be. Charlie took a deep breath, grappling with the array of conflicting feelings radiating from Jack's earnest eyes.
"I don't know what that even means," he said, voice tinged with uncertainty. "It means I'll show up," Jack insisted, leaning forward, a sense of urgency propelling his words. "If you give me your trust, I'll prove myself. Brick by brick, I'll earn a place in your life. You will see me for who I can be instead of who I was." Jack watched as Charlie contemplated, the glimmer of uncertainty yielding to curiosity. "What if I don't want to?" he asked, albeit softer this time. "Then I respect that," Jack replied honestly. "But this is your chance."
To tell me what you need. Let me learn about you. I want to know your fears, your dreams, and let's build a new chapter together. No more running, just honesty. Slowly, the tension morphed into a fragile sense of openness. Charlie's eyes shone with a complex blend of emotions. "I just don't want to keep getting let down," he whispered, his vulnerability leading the way. "I can't promise perfection," Jack said softly, fighting the urge to reach across the tiny table. "But what I can promise is that I will be here. I've learned to be afraid, but now I choose courage. I want to be a part of your life, Charlie. It's time I take that step forward, with sincerity." Billy's sensitive voice echoed in Jack's mind, intertwining with the moment. Just be real. Maybe today was the unfolding of something profound, a tireless quest toward connection. In that moment, facing the reality of his son, Jack felt the overwhelming pride surge within him. "Okay." Charlie's voice was barely audible, held together with caution. "Let's see what you can do." Joy and hope welled within Jack's chest as the two of them began to shape a fragile connection. Each word spoken became a step taken, bridging the chasm forged by missed opportunities. Jack knew this journey would not be easy. It would be fraught with trials and long nights filled with questions. Yet the answer was simple and clear. He was finally willing to become a father fully and unapologetically. As they shared small moments of laughter, Jack felt emboldened with acceptance of the challenge ahead. Together they were carving a place for connection, woven thin but sturdy, embracing the hopes of a future filled with possibilities. The sun dipped low in the sky as they shared their first meal together, a sprinkle of hope glistening in the air like an untainted horizon waiting for them. "Can we try that park after?" Charlie asked tentatively, allowing a flicker of excitement through his voice. "With all my heart," Jack replied, a smile breaking across his face. He felt lighter, having taken a leap of faith. The shadows of yesterday faded, replaced by the light of new beginnings. Jack reminded himself that every step from now on required devotion and perseverance. The spark of hope that Charlie had allowed into their lives would require nurturing, but he was ready. They both were. This was only the beginning, and together they would confront everything yet to come, shaping the legacy of familial bonds anew. Jack took a deep breath, gazing at the world shared once again, and whispered a silent vow to himself. "I will not turn back. I will not walk away again." Hope was not just a promise. It was a commitment. And together, father and son stood at the threshold of a renewed relationship, ready to embrace every joy and challenge that lay ahead. Now, more than ever, Jack felt a sense of fulfillment, an achievement forged through connection and commitment to forging both their futures. The calling was clear. This was a pivotal moment of transformation and building toward a complete circle of love and resilience. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.
You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.